I've got a confession to make. If you've been around this channel, you know the deal. I use the iPad Pro as my laptop replacement for almost 8 years now, basically since the 2018 redesign. I watched the hardware get too good for its own software, then watched the software slowly crawl up to meet it. And look, the iPad is no slouch as a computer, but since January, I haven't touched it. For the last 6 months, this is what's actually been living in my bag. This is the M4 15-inch MacBook Air in sky blue, 16 gigs of RAM, a terabyte of storage. I never properly reviewed it when it came out, and I skipped the M5 because of how similar the two models are. And what finally pushed me to make this video was my recent trip to Croatia. I brought this along with me and just remembered exactly why I loved it and figured it was time to actually talk about it. At my desk, I run an M2 Ultra Max Studio with 2 Studio Display XDRs. That setup handles 90% of everything I do: admin, scripting, emails, all the way through a full creative workflow from video to photo to graphic design. Nothing makes it sweat. The remaining 2% is travel, and if I'm being honest, I want that number to be a little higher. I want to be out more, away from the desk more. That travel slot used to belong to my iPad Pro, now it belongs to this. Before I get into why, a quick word from this video's sponsor, HBADA. Here's the thing most people get wrong. Ergonomic chairs usually aren't actually ergonomic. They're just adjustable, and there's a real difference. Adjustable means you set it once and forget it. Truly ergonomic means the chair moves with you throughout the day. If you're sitting 8, 10, 12 hours at a desk, that distinction matters more than almost any other spec for a chair. The HBADA E3 Pro has been one of the most popular chairs in this class for a while now, and the 2026 makes some genuinely meaningful upgrades. The headline feature is the 3-zone lumbar system. Instead of one pad jamming into your lower back, you get a center spine support plus 2 rotating side wings that wrap around and contour to you. So you're not in pain after a long session. There's independent height and depth adjustment, 30 millimeters of gliding scale support that resets every time you sit upright, and when you lean forward or back, the whole thing just adapts in real time. It's the first chair that I've used where I genuinely forgot the lumbar support was there because it's just quietly doing its job. The 4D dual axis headrest moves up, down, forward, back with 70 degrees of rotation, and it actually pivots to match how your neck moves, not just like where you set it. After long editing sessions, that's made one of the biggest differences for me personally. The armrests are 720 degrees adjustable, 360 degrees on each axis, and that number sounds like marketing until you actually use them. Bring them in tight for typing, widen them for calls, rotate them for gaming, drop them when you want to recline. You can position these however you need. The mesh is breathable, doesn't sag, doesn't bottom out, and holds up over time. The seat adjusts for different heights and body types, and when you're done working, it reclines all the way back to 140 degrees, which makes it the perfect spot to just sit back and decompress. For 2026, the big upgrades are the adaptive lumbar, the gliding scale support, the 720-degree arms, upgraded mesh, and new wire-controlled system. This isn't a cosmetic refresh. These are real improvements across the board. If you're serious about your setup, your comfort, and your health overall, then make sure to hit the first link in the description to the E3 Pro, and a huge thanks to HBADA for sponsoring this video. The turning point was CES back in January. A sponsored video landed on me mid-trip with a fast turnaround. They needed it done while I was still in Vegas. The only problem, I had brought the iPad and not the MacBook. So I kind of MacGyvered it. I dropped the footage onto the iPad, uploaded it to my NAS, remotely logged into my Mac Studio back at home, put the footage on my Mac Studio, and then edited the video remotely on my Mac Studio from the iPad while I was in Vegas. And it worked. The latency was fine. The final cut looked exactly like I'd done it natively, but I'd spent hours stressing out doing something that should have taken like 20 minutes, and that trip is the reason the iPad has been sitting untouched ever since. Now look, this isn't about the iPad being underpowered. It runs the same M4 chip as this MacBook Air, and hardware-wise, I could run this entire channel off one. Admin, scripting, and IA writer, research, photo editing, and Photometer, all flawless. Video is where it falls apart for me. I used to cut everything on the iPad in LumaFusion before I had the Mac Studio, but once I moved to Final Cut Pro, I built such a deep muscle memory around that workflow that anything else just throws me off. I tried LumaFusion again, I tried the Final Cut iPad app, neither felt one-to-one. Things just took longer. Steps that should be automatic suddenly required thought. The chip is obviously powerful enough, that's not the issue. The issue is I can't replicate my workflow here, and until I can, the Mac is gonna win, which is exactly what brought me back to the MacBook Air. I love 13-inch laptops, so the 15-inch wasn't my instinctive pick, but here's the trick of the Air. It doesn't feel big. It is a larger footprint than I'd want though. Like it didn't fit the tray table on the Croatia flight, and those round cafe tables are not this laptop's friend. I've commandeered a second table more times than I'd like to admit just to keep my coffee on, but the bigger screen does pay off for multitasking, but I still do miss that smaller form factor, so don't be surprised if I'm back on the 13-inch the second the M6 lands. Build quality is exceptional. It's honestly why I keep gravitating towards lighter, smaller hardware across the board, like my iPhone Air, compact camera bodies like the Sony ZV-E10 Mark II. There's just something about gear that doesn't feel like a burden that makes you actually reach for it, and the Air fits that philosophy perfectly. 2 Thunderbolt 4 ports, MagSafe, and a headphone jack. That does cover most use cases, but if you need USB-A, HDMI, and SD card reader, you are in dongle territory. Both ports are on the left side only, so anything docked on the right side of your desk means cables are bending around the back. It's a small thing, but a constant annoyance. I charge over USB-C personally since I always have USB-C cables lying around, but having MagSafe there as an option is genuinely appreciated. Performance is where the M4 actually did surprise me. My main shooting format is 4K 10-bit 422 out of Sony cameras, an FX30, a ZV-E1, and a ZV-E10 Mark II as my pocket option. For short form edits, chopping footage, dropping in a song, color correcting a few clips, throwing my LUT on top, this thing performs like a desktop. YouTube edits are a slightly different story. My timelines are very B-roll heavy, a lot of 4K 60 clips that I slow down and stabilize in Final Cut, and that stabilization is what really taxes the Air. On my Mac Studio, I'll select all the 4K 60 clips and stabilize it in one pass. On the Air, doing that all at once will just choke it, so I've learned to work in batches and keep background apps closed. It's completely workable once you adjust. I did test the M4 with 24 gigs of RAM when the M4 first came out, and I didn't run into those slowdowns at all. So the bottleneck does seem to be RAM more than the chip itself, and that did surprise me because I assumed that Apple Silicon's media engines would make RAM less of a factor for video work, but turns out it still matters a lot. In 6 months, I've hit the wall maybe like 2 or 3 times, and each time it was fixable in like under 2 minutes. Just force quit a few apps, keep Final Cut Pro open, and just back in business in no time. But if I were to go buy this again, I'd definitely go with 24 gigs of RAM. I got the 1 terabyte option, which I have genuinely appreciated because I can run a full project off the internal drive, something I've never been able to do even on my Mac Studio, where I just default to external enclosures. I still carry a Terramaster Thunderbolt 5 enclosure with a 1 terabyte Samsung 990 Pro for overflow, but having that internal headroom on the road has been a real nice change. The keyboard is still excellent, but I'll be honest, I actually think the Magic Keyboard on the iPad case has a slightly nicer feel. It's still my favorite typing experience personally, but the MacBook Air's keyboard is still one of the better ones out there, and Touch ID has been great for unlocking passwords and payments, and also surprisingly, I haven't missed Face ID at all. The 15-inch also gets a slightly larger trackpad than the 13-inch, which is a nice bonus. Apple's trackpads are still the best in the laptop market. Nothing else comes close for the fluidity, the gesture support. Just, it feels so essential to macOS that even at my desk, I keep one alongside my MX Master 3S. The display is one I never think about indoors, and I mean that as a compliment. It looks good. P3 white color, sharp, images and video, they look amazing on it. Where I feel the limits is outside. A bright cafe patio, direct sunlight in the backyard, the airport. 500 nits just isn't enough, and you end up being strategic about where you sit instead of just sitting down wherever you'd like. I'd love to see mini LED come to the Air, especially with the Pro lineup rumored to move to OLED. 60 Hz is the other thing. It doesn't hurt my workflow, but coming from ProMotion, you notice it the moment that you're scrolling or scrubbing a timeline, and I know both mini LED and a high refresh rate are pro features, but with the Neo now existing, this is now a mid-tier device, so I really do feel like these are like the next natural sort of steps for this machine. The speakers are impressive for a laptop with 0 visible grills. They get loud, hold some low end, more than good enough for like YouTube, sports, highlights, just casual use. The webcam is fine. I personally use an Osbot external webcam for my video calls and stuff, but the microphone has genuinely been good. I'll ramble into the voice memos app while walking around my room, and it just keeps up. This whole script for this video started as a voice note on this laptop. Battery has fully lived up to the all-day claim. In Croatia, I went island hopping for like 5 days without bringing a charger. Granted, I was only using the laptop for like 10-15 minutes a day, just checking on like Slack and emails and stuff, but I left that first Airbnb with 50% and came back to it with 35%. For heavier use like Final Cut, Pixelmator Pro, you'll drain it faster, but on a typical working day of light editing mixed with writing and browsing, you can get a full day no problem. One underrated advantage of the Air over the Pro chips is that the base M series only need about 30 watts to charge. That means you can use a tiny charger like the ones like the size of your hand to juice up this laptop. And with a 60-watt brick, you can actually fast charge it. And even those bricks are super tiny themselves. The one thing I really don't love is that there's no SD card slot. I'm a photographer and a videographer, so every offload is a dongle situation. It is annoying, although not exactly new since the iPad only has one port, so I'm no stranger to the dongle life. I don't think this is a permanent switch. My iPad has genuinely been sluggish since the iPadOS 26.5 update. It's got a laggy home screen, slow to unlock, just buggy in ways I did not expect from an M4 device. I'm waiting on iPadOS 27 public beta to see if there's any stability improvements, and once the software gets like sorted out, I can see myself going back to the iPad for like lighter days and grabbing the Air when I know I'll need to edit. But for the last 6 months, as my workflow has gotten increasingly more video centric, the combination of Final Cut Pro and the simplicity of Finder over the Files app has made the MacBook Air the obvious thing to travel with. Having macOS in my bag, actually being able to sit down anywhere and just work has been a better experience than I expected, especially after years of adapting the iPad into my travel workflow. Anyways, that's it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, make sure to give it a like and share it to a friend. And if you like Apple tech or desk setup related content, make sure to subscribe, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Peace.